Hamas agrees to the latest Gaza ceasefire proposal, sourcing group says. The very fact that this is being reported on the BBC is interesting, because normally I wouldn't hear from the Hamas side of things from the BBC. I would hear from Drop Site. So I wonder where this is. Coming from.
To the Middle East for the next few moments, because Hamas has informed mediators that it approves the latest Gaza ceasefire proposal. That is what a group official has told the Reuters news agency. AFP are also reporting this, that a Hamas source who requested anonymity told them that Hamas has delivered its response to the mediators, confirming that Hamas and the factions agree to the new ceasefire proposal without requesting any amendments. A Palestinian official earlier today told AFP that mediators had proposed an initial 60-day truce and hostage release in 2 batches. Well, let's go live to our Middle East correspondent, Emir Nader, live there in Jerusalem. And Emir, tell us more.
Well, what we understand is that this proposal is been based on a proposal originally put forward by the US envoy to the Middle East, Steve Witkoff, earlier in June. We've heard from a Palestinian official familiar with the talks that is what this 60-day ceasefire proposal is based around. It would see hostages and Palestinian prisoners exchanged in 2 batches over those 60 days. So an initial release of living Israeli hostages of perhaps around 10. That's around half of the Israeli hostages in the Gaza Strip, believed to still be alive still, and a number of bodies of Israeli hostages. And then there would be negotiations during this period ongoing for a permanent end to the war. That was the proposal put forward by Steve Witkoff earlier this year. We understand from Palestinian officials familiar with the talks that it is the proposal that has formed the basis of what Hamas have agreed to today. It was put forward to them in Egypt, where there have been these very reinvigorated negotiations, discussions ongoing in an attempt to avert Israel's planned invasion of Gaza City, which could have very huge, untold consequences for the million Palestinians that are there. So it's really focused.
I'm fairly certain that Israel's only accepting this. If they do, who knows? They'll probably stop bombing again after the 2 hostages have been released now, because there are 500,000 protests in Israel at the moment about Bibi not bringing hostages home. It feels like it's, I guess, like the internal pressure is mounting in Israel. But
minds. What we don't know is how Israel may respond to this.
I saw a photo that said 300,000. I mean, it looked like a massive protest. It certainly looked like a gigantic protest. So
be seen as a partial deal, i.e. a staged release of hostages. And just last week we heard from Prime Minister Netanyahu that the door has closed to partial deals and that he wants to pursue only a comprehensive deal that would see the release of all Israeli hostages. However, he will be expected to respond to this, and there are many details that we aren't aware of, many details that involves, for instance, the day after, many details that will need to be worked out. Indeed, one of the key sticking points that undermined this proposal put forward by Steve Witkoff the first time is that Hamas really wants any release of hostages to lead to a permanent end to the war. So they, no doubt, will be seeking and perhaps have been given some indication of assurances that if they are to engage with this and release hostages, it will indeed lead to a permanent end to the war.
Emir Nader there in Jerusalem. Thanks very much.
Over to the Middle East now, where Israel's plan to take over much of Gaza was met with protests by hundreds of thousands of Israelis yesterday. They held demonstrations across the country demanding a ceasefire and the return of the remaining hostages held by Hamas. Lee Kanairi has more on some of Israel's largest anti-war protests.
End the war. Release the hostages. Hundreds of thousands in Israel demanded during a nationwide strike, blocking major highways and lighting bonfires. Loud calls for their government to listen.
Stop the war. Stop the government from sacrificing our hostages, sacrificing basically us and the Palestinian people for its own political gain.
One of the largest demonstrations of dissent over Israel's campaign to defeat Hamas in Gaza. The father of American-Israeli soldier Itai Chen, whose body is believed to be held by Hamas, summed it up with a scream. enough, he says. Outrage has grown after Prime Minister Netanyahu revealed plans for a new military offensive in some of Gaza's most populated areas that will require mass movement of Palestinians again.
Oof. It's still whiplash, bro. Every time they flip from protests in Israel directly to like 20, 30, 40 miles away from where that protester is being held. And I'm like, holy it's like living in Chicago and bombing the ever-loving out of like right on the other side of the Illinois state boundary. You know what I mean? I don't think we think about it enough. Like, this is Gary, Indiana versus Chicago, Illinois. Like, imagine if the people of Chicago were just like absolutely destroying, just like bombing the out of Indiana.
From places like Gaza City, where 11-year-old Nadim Abu Nada lives in ruins. But this is her home, and she says the only place she wants to go is to school. We want to live like the other children around the world and go to school. We have nothing. There is no food or water. Food aid agencies operating in Gaza say getting into the territory remains highly challenging, and any further disruption could be dire. Israeli reports say a Gaza City offensive would require a large-scale mobilization.
Yeah, they keep talking about 750,000 reservists. They got like 74,000 active duty right now. They are not getting 750,000 reservists to actually go and permanently militarily occupy Gaza. These people are out of their fucking minds, dude. It's just psychotic. I guess they're just gonna, what? America, instead of sending troops to Ukraine and defend Ukraine, which is not going to happen, obviously. Russia's a nuclear armed nation. We're going to send 100,000 troops. We're going to do the real Iraq surge, but this time in Gaza, so that Israel can maintain and occupy Gaza while it continues conducting its ethnic cleansing campaign.
Of reservists that would come as fury at government policy is loud and clear. For CBS,
yeah, we got to send in the National Guard to defend Israel, dude. ADL CEO Jonathan Greenblatt on rising protests. The one-sidedness of this is just astonishing. Wait, is that in Israel or in America?
Strike in Israel yesterday, bringing the country to a halt. Protesters marching against the government in support of a deal with Hamas that would free remaining hostages.
Please tell me Jonathan Greenblatt is going to say these guys are anti-Semitic. He won't say that. That's a bridge too far. But that would be really funny if he was like, these guys are so one-sided. They just don't understand. They don't understand that Netanyahu's ambitions in Gaza contain multitudes. There's so many different good reasons to permanently militarily occupy Gaza. It's really f***ed up.
Which is held for almost 2 years. On Saturday, New York City saw its largest protest against Israel action against Hamas in Gaza in months. And new and returning college students now arriving on campuses across the nation as all of this is happening. Jonathan Greenblatt, the CEO and National Director of ADL, sending a letter urging universities to better address anti-Semitism. I want to welcome you to the show this morning, but boy, is this a unique and complicated moment, given these protests, given this sort of issue about the way the government of Israel is acting or behaving and some of the tragedies taking place in Gaza right now, and the confluence of anti-Semitism. How do you think about that right now?
Look, I think the complicated is the right word for it. I think all of us on all sides sort of bemoan the tragedy in Gaza, right? It is painful to see these pictures of people, clamoring for aid and in such desperate need. And at the same time, it is painful to see protesters here in this country putting all the blame on the Jewish state for a war that Hamas started. And there's anxiety to go back.
My question to you, as a Jew, especially now, where do you believe anti-Semitism starts and stops? And the reason I ask, in the context of, are the folks that are protesting what Israel is doing right now, do you think that they are unto themselves anti-Semitic? Is that protest?
I love the news asking Greenblatt for some objective line where you cross it, and that is anti-Semitism. Lamau preposterous on his face. Yeah. It's crazy because it's a layup every time, and he still f***ed it up every single time. I don't even know how. These guys agree with Jonathan Greenblatt. Like, he went on the New York Times interview and they were like, what's the line between anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism? And he was like, it's all anti-Semitism. And even the New York Times was like, that sounds a little crazy. You know what I mean? Like, your job is to just be the number one communicator that like all critics of Israel are anti-Semites. You should be able to figure out a better way to do this. Honestly, like, it is shocking how bad he is at this job.
Anti-Semitic.
Look, I've got to say, it's a fair question and kind of an amazing.
It's a fair question, but it's all anti-Semitic. Sorry, Mr. Squawk of Squawk's Box. Why are you skipping over the fact that these Tel Aviv protests have nothing to do with Palestinian emancipation or rights? It's just Israelis not wanting to die in Gaza and wanting their POWs back. One, I'm not. I often explain that incredibly important part of this conversation. And two, not only is that correct, but also, even if that is correct, anything that gums up the works is still good. That's just my attitude at this point. It's one born out of desperation. Make no mistake. Like, I see people, for example, that retweet Israelis who are conscientious objectors, who like literally are going to prison for not serving in the Israeli occupying force, and some dumb like American is quote retweeting them being like, it's the bare minimum. It's like, dude, shut the up. That's crazy. You've done nothing. You've sacrificed nothing in your life. That should unconditionally be celebrated. No reason ever to on a person that's doing that. That should be celebrated. That should be praised. That should be defended. That's it. You got to do positive reinforcement. These people are doing, like, their sacrifices are obviously nothing in comparison to the average Palestinian, but you're not an average Palestinian. You're just a guy. You're a guy that is disconnected from this incident. You're a guy that's disconnected from this genocide, and it's understandably made you incredibly emotional. I get that. You're on the right side of history, but don't attack people who are doing the most, like, within the limited confines of whatever they can do, especially when it, like, moves the needle in the appropriate direction. This is a thing that I try to explain to people. It's like, don't cast aside allies. Always remember what the broader societal attitude is, and try to move as many people as you can to your position. And the best possible way to do that is by being open-minded, by being charitable, by trying to actively promote people like that, for example. Wait, why shit on the protesters? Oh, no, people were saying that these protests are just for, like, it's not for Palestinian emancipation. It's not even like a straightforward anti-genocide protest. It's just like people that don't want to go serve, and also people that want the hostages to be released because, like, they're still their family members and friends that are, like, prisoners of war in Gaza. And I am diaspora Palestinian, for your information, so I got skin in the game. No, I don't. I understand that. I know. I get that. I'm saying that many people who do say that shit are not, but even then, it still doesn't matter. I will say this to a diaspora Palestinian. I say this to a Palestinian that's that has escaped Gaza, okay? Because this is a conversation about methods. This is a conversation about appropriate anger being directed in the place that is productive. This is a conversation that revolves around pragmatism. It doesn't matter. I understand where people are coming from, but ultimately you need positive reinforcement, and it's a good thing. It's not a lip take. None of you are doing anything. Shut up. People get so goddamn annoying about this. Shut the up. Shut the up. Oh my God, everyone that goes, that's crazy. No, if someone is a refusenik, you should absolutely support them. You should praise them. They are doing a good thing. They're refusing to serve. They're saying it's a genocidal army. They are anti-Zionists. You need to expand the permission structure. And ultimately, you're picking away, one by one. Maybe it's like a handful of people, 30 people or whatever. But like, you're picking away at people who would otherwise go and serve in the genocidal Israeli army and continue the occupation. It's a good thing. Every obstruction, even if it's not immediately for Palestinian emancipation, is still a good thing, because this gums up the works for the Israeli state. And the same goes for people who protested the Nazi regime, the people who like refused to serve in the Nazi military. It's a good thing. It's objectively a good thing.
Amazing one because I know I've said, and many people have said over and over and over again, protesting Israel isn't anti-Semitic. The hundreds of...
shut the f up. Yes, you do. You do say that. You can't say that right now because the videos on the screen are Jews in Israel protesting against the Israeli state. So it comes across as like a moronic statement. Bad take. No one ever explains why it's a bad take. This person will just double down and say it's actually libbed up. I am getting sicker and sicker and more tired of some of the most snarky, annoying assholes in this goddamn community, especially because like it's rendered my position impossible because of my own personal radical framework, that it has made it already impossible for like the average lib to even entertain what I'm saying with like an ounce of charity. But in the same time frame, a lot of these assholes are desperate for even more purges. Anyone that's already in here who actually doesn't have, who is almost identical to your worldview, might have a different method of advocacy, and you just take that marginal difference and you turn it into the most consequential aspect of your politics, your reflection of politics. It is inherently reactionary. It's so annoying. You guys need to shut the up.
Thousands of people in Tel Aviv and Haifa and Jerusalem, they're not anti-Semitic. But if the only country...
Yeah, he's saying, yeah, you're only not anti-Semitic protesting the state of Israel if you're Jewish and in Israel. Thanks, Jonathan. Great point. Also, they need to cut it out with this interfaith marriage nonsense. I am a civil rights advocacy organizing... I'm the leader of a civil rights advocacy organization. Hello, I'm Jonathan Greenblatt. I am anti-miscegenation.
That you think has any responsibility for the situation is Israel? If you parade signs around that claim Israel is a Nazi state, if you make wild claims that, like Bella Hadid's father, Mohammed Hadid, did over the weekend, that he wants to destroy the state of Israel, that crosses a line. I mean, literally, I just can't understand, Andrew.
Yeah. This motherfucker always has some celebrity's name that he can drop.
I care about children in Gaza, too.
It's got to be such a... you don't. Yeah, you care about killing them.
But why was there not a single sign yesterday or over the weekend saying they care about Israeli children? Why isn't there a single person at these protests saying, Qatar, lean on Hamas?
What do you mean Israeli children, bro? What do you mean? What are you talking about? Is there an imminent threat to the Israeli children beyond the Israeli state itself? Like, what are we talking about? How do people not realize he's just all lives mattering a genocide? That's what he's doing. That's it. That's what he's doing. What do you mean Israeli children? Like what? Like what are you talking about?
The one-sidedness of this is just astonishing, and it makes people like me, people who care deeply about all human beings, wonder, is there something else going on when you only blame one side?
Here's the thing that I worry about.
Yeah.
I agree with you, by the way.
Yeah.
Why is Israel the only one being blamed? 100%.
Right. Yeah.
Unfortunately, it seems to be the reality of the way the world seems to look at this. And maybe that unto itself is anti-Semitic. I don't know. But my question to you is how you feel about some of the actions of Israel right now, and whether you think that whatever is happening here, from just a very practical perspective, is almost creating a new sense of anti-Semitism and almost growing that feeling among others. That's what scares me.
Well, look, I'll tell you what. I think
even if you 100% agree with what Israel is doing, in some ways, it may have this counter effect that I'm now increasingly worried about.
Look, Hamas staging a war while hiding behind civilians, Hamas holding hostages, which is their only point of leverage, creates almost an impossible riddle for Israel to solve.
But then the question is, what's the right answer?
So the question is, like, why is it that Jewish people in this country get blamed for...
I can't even listen to it, man. I can't even listen to it. I can't. He just always repeats the same nonsense over and over and over again. Yeah, if you want to protect the children of Israel, stop letting the pedophiles into the country because it has a non-extradition treaty. Like, Tom Alexandrovich. Jesus Christ. Noah Smith. Leftists use Palestine primarily as a wedge issue to try to win internal factional battles within the Democratic Party. They don't actually think they have much chance of affecting events in Palestine. Leftists have been organizing especially on campus about Palestine for decades when the pro-Palestinian position was totally irrelevant to anything going on in the Democratic Party. It has become significant in the Democratic Party only lately because of Israel's recent actions. These takes don't seem to be in tension. Leftists have been trying to build factional power rather than constructively influence events for decades. Oh, you hate your community? Not the entirety of it, but lately the vibe shift has been tremendous, tremendously unproductive to the grand design that I have. Of course, I don't hate the entire community. It's the one thing that that and spite keeps me going. It's also the external forces, obviously, mostly the elevated death threats, like kicked up to a much higher degree. The level of vitriol and fixation they operate with goes far beyond critique. It's obsessive, violent, disturbingly normalized. The constant stalking, lies, and coordinated harassment should alarm anyone who cares about their online safety. They're constantly brigading anyone and everyone that I collaborate with and bring that toxicity over to other people. Everybody in this industry knows who the villains are. They just don't want to say anything because they don't want to get a fraction of that smoke. They see what I have to deal with behind closed doors. They openly talk about how insane it is, and they can't say anything about it because who am I to like, yo, put your, speak out on it. Speak out on it. Why not fight fire with fire? What do you want me to do? I'm a leftist, okay? We don't get the same level of breathing room to just operate with the same level of toxicity. I don't even make death threats, and I abhor them. I think it's ridiculous. Even if I joke about something, they will present it as though I'm sincerely advocating for the death of a sitting senator. Or if I talk about like international law within the context of like an illegal raid in the West Bank, people turn around and treat it as though it's like a sincere death threat or some shit when it's very clearly not. I very clearly stated that it's limited to the confines of like a military operation that's taking place. And then on top of that, they turn around and issue actual death threats, actual brigading, openly stating like every advertiser on the Twitch platform needs to hear this.
While some sponsors have no doubt left, there's still enough remaining that Amazon has not been forced to intervene. And I would encourage anyone using Twitch to contact advisors as soon as they're served to you. If you use Twitch, if you're watching, when you get an ad, write them.
They need to go and brigade they mass blast every advertiser because they can't do it. They can't do it to me directly because I don't have any advertisers. I have very limited advertisers, and they obviously don't give a shit. So it's entirely bad faith. I don't have that same capacity to do so, especially because it gets in the way. Like even this meta commentary about like being visibly left, being visibly progressive on the internet, and how much that opens you up to the floodgates of hatred is unironically deviating the attention away from the shit that I want to talk about, What is this? We're agreeing, I think. Leftists don't really care about the issues they talk about, whether it's Palestine or anything else. The whole goal is to build factional power over the long term. What the Yeah, dude, leftists don't care about the issue of Palestine. They're just using the issue of Palestine to build power within one of the two parties so they can put an end to Israel's violence, which is somehow not caring about the issue of Palestine. This is a psychology thing. He needs to justify the fact he doesn't care about the genocide, so he has to say to himself, well, nobody actually cares anyway. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, there's no reason at any given point to actually care about whatever the Matt Iglesias has to say, honestly. Yeah, also, Catherine Clark, the second most powerful Democrat in the House of Representatives behind Hakeem Jeffries, just admitted that Israel is committing a genocide in Gaza. New, days after saying we have to take action to stop the starvation and genocide and destruction of Gaza, top Democrat Catherine Clark backtracks, says she wants to be clear, I'm not accusing Israel of genocide. Yeah, she should have followed that up with saying, I'm not accusing Israel of genocide. I'm saying Israel's doing a genocide and everyone can see it. It's not an accusation. Why do they behave like this? I don't understand. Where is the pressure coming from? Like, it doesn't make sense. Just say the truth. This will not age well. I don't even know how things will age. I'm just not going to be there to see it at this point. I'm going to perish one of these days. It just feels like I'm going insane every single day that I see this shit. What is this? This many This may be true of many of the subsection of leftists, but it feels insulting to say none of them, including the many Muslim and Arab activists, don't actually care about Palestine. Absolutely. Among Arabs and Muslims, of course, it's not a left issue, but a right-wing nationalist one. And they have incredibly sincere commitment to it, though unfortunately less so to the humanitarian needs of the Palestinian people and as individuals. I can't say what I think about Matt Iglesias, and I feel like he's just writing this shit so he can piss people off.